Welcome, everybody. This is two EdTech guys take questions and share cool stuff. And it's the last one of our school year. Whoa, we're going to break for summer here in a minute. So we are excited to have you with us. I've already turned on the captions. How cool is that? And like I said, we're going to take a break after this. However, we will certainly let you know if you are on either of our mailing lists. You will no doubt hear from us to let you know that we are back into business of answering your questions, which we're very happy to do. We thank you for taking some time to hang out with the likes of us. Calls into question your judgment, but hopefully you enjoy it in some level. I will also send a thanks out to the good folks at the Krause Center for Innovation at Foothill College in Los Altos Hills, California, all the good they do through the Merit program and the new LE program and a lot of other programs. And then there's this thing right here. Richard, talk to us.
freetechforteachers.com, which is going on 14 years now of me writing about interesting EdTech items that I find, and a lot of them that I use in my classroom as well.
That is awesome. And I mean that both in the sense of, hey, that's awesome, and it's an awesome site. If you are in the audience at the moment and you're like, wait, I've never taken a look at that site. Good heavens, what is holding you back, right? Please get over there. You know, when I send you the links later, there'll be several different things that can point you in this direction, and do it. All right, so I run a little shindig called Next Vista for Learning. What is it, you say? It is a library of videos by and for teachers and students everywhere, free to use, free to contribute to, free to download from, all for a student audience, all screen content. My own little attempt to save the universe from ignorance, one creative video at a time. And in my June newsletter, you'll learn about the finalists from our spring contest. So feel free to give that a look. In the So You Know department, this is May 20th, or at least in this part of the world it is. There are certain parts of the world where it's already May 21st. But as for May 20th, you should know that in 1609, Shakespeare's sonnets were first published on this day. Not necessarily legally, but they were. In 1873, there was a patent, awarded for blue jeans with copper rivets. I'm thinking that there's some interesting discussion about the nature of patents when the specified piece is blue jeans with copper rivets. And then finally, in 1988, this is a shout out, by the way, to Judith, who has joined us as well. Quebec was like, we'll stay with Canada. I mean, we're cool and different, but we'll stay. And we love that so many good Canadian folks hang out with us on a regular or semi-regular basis as may be moved by the Spirit. So how does this work? Well, this is two EdTech guys take questions and share cool stuff. I just told you how it'll work. So let's jump into the questions, and Richard, get us started. What is our first question for today?
Hey, can I tell you about strange patents first?
Absolutely. Let's call it the first question.
All right. The first question is, did you know?
Yes.
Did you know that you can patent the direction in which you twist a rope?
Really?
Yes. I have a friend who is a fibers engineer and holds a patent on the direction in which the fibers in a particular rope are twisted. Okay.
So it is the nature of the construction of the rope, and not like I'm doing this and being like, hey, I patented that. That was mine. Yeah. That's what we're talking about. All right. That makes more sense to me. And I think, and actually it makes plenty of sense to me. So I'm good with that. And I think it's cool that you have a friend in the fibers industry.
Yeah. He's an interesting guy. He's also a former professional hockey player, but that's another story for another day. Let's get to the first question, which came from Stacy, who said, what experience do you have with Mathagon and Polypad? Do you have any videos showing it? So not being a math teacher, but having talked to a lot of elementary school teachers who teach math, they do love Mathagon. And I actually don't have a video about Mathagon, but last year, Mathagon did this really cool activity in which students had to try to color in all the states in the United States without repeating a color, but using as few as colors, without colors touching, but using as few colors as possible.
Wow.
Really cool. So anyway, the reason I'm bringing that up is because Mathagon does have a lot of really cool things. It's called the Map Coloring Challenge.
Yeah.
And I actually did a video that kind of knocked off the idea of doing that, but with Google Jamboard.
Oh,
And
nice.
I'm happy to share that with you.
Hey, get that in the chat. We'll get that in the links as well.
I'll put that in there. So the short answer is no, I don't have a whole lot of experience with Mathagon and a hands-on experience other than the mapping activity, which I thought was a cool correlation to social studies. So there's that.
Right there, the map coloring challenge. I like it.
Yeah. All right. Question 2 from Stacy.
Uh-huh.
Do you have a cost-effective 2-in-1 device that can be used for presenting? I log into a Collaborate session twice and currently use a Surface Pro as the device I share. The other device is a monitor and it's wonderful, but I've been asked to look for a more cost-effective device. The Dell 3190 is okay, but it has issues when screen sharing and using the mic in the session. So I would go with I have a Surface Pro, full disclosure. It was given to me as a review item from Microsoft, and I love it. Would I love it if I had paid $1,000 for it? Yeah, I probably still would. Now, that said, a more cost-effective method than what's been done in my school is actually using, instead of using a 2-in-1 device, just getting, for what it sounds like, just getting a dedicated drawing tablet, be it either an iPad or a dedicated Wacom style tablet for drawing. And that's a little more cost effective because a lot of times you already have the, you already have a laptop in place. And so that's a little bit more cost effective. If you already have those laptops in place, that's already a sunk cost. And then you're just adding in a tablet device on the second, as a secondary device. And that's what's been happening in my school this year. But the 3190, I haven't tried it. I'm not a huge fan of the Dell products in general. I've just in my last couple of years of teaching PC repair as one of my courses, we got a lot of funky little quirks to come up with some of them. So Dell's probably going to sue me now for saying that on a webinar, but
I doubt it. I actually am working off of the Dell XPS desktop, which it's like my second one in a row. I quite like them.
I will. Rushton loves it.
Well, so. There you go. I will add that in terms of cost effective and something that you can draw on and present from and blah, 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 you might take a look at the new Asus Chromebook, the CX5. It's kind of a big, heavy thing, right? But loads of ports, lots of possibilities, handles that kind of stuff. And I think the asking price is something in the like $569 range or something like that. I'll add a link to it in the links page for us as well. And on the chat, here we go. Let me do that. Boom, right there. All right. Do we have another question we can jump to before cool stuff starts happening?
We've got another question here. Question from Margaret. Are these copyright-free images from Search from the Web? And she sent me a screenshot. She's referring to the results in the Google Images, the Google Slides image search.
Yes.
So,
or more to the point, yes, that is what she is referring to, as opposed to yes answering her question.
Correct. Right. Mm-hmm. So she's referring to the built-in image search that's inside of Google Slides and whether or not those images are copyright free or copyright friendly, meaning Creative Commons or one of the variations of Creative Commons. And the answer to that is no, you can't default to that. Because if I go and do it right now, let's say I look for a picture of a dog. Right? Now, there's a good...
I'll images.google.com, all right? And we say dog.
Well, she's talking about specifically about the slides inside, the image search inside of Slides, which is different than Google Images itself.
It's different for getting there, but isn't it the same thing?
The difference is it doesn't show you the image source when you insert it.
That's like a step back.
It is. It is like a step back. It doesn't show you the image source.
Yeah, no good.
So you can't default to that to say, well, I use the I use the image search that's built into Google Slides because it doesn't show you that information of where it came from. Now, theoretically, Google has said that those are copyright friendly, but you have no way to really verify that.
And by the way, let me interrupt to say thank you for pointing out that the issue is what you can verify, right?
Right.
So I am, look, depending on the age group we're talking about, you choose your source accordingly. However, getting students in the habit of having a different site from which they get images. So perhaps even, like photos for class, right? Totally good. But you want them to learn the academic process of citing sources. You want them to have some sense of there's like any image, and then there's stuff that we can use. And then there is the rather subtle piece of, instead of getting fixated on an image and using it, think more in terms of what is the idea and what are the different kinds of ways I can search for images in any given setting. So if you're using something like Photos for Class or Unsplash, or what I did moments ago, which was to go to tools and usage rights and Creative Commons license, you can figure out what it is. But you look at these different pieces and you say, oh, okay, well, there's these different pieces right here. Here's a Pixabay, licensable, interesting, Flickr. And if it's got the, if it's Flickr and the usage rights thing is checked, then, you're almost certainly in good shape. So you go to the page, you take a look in Flickr, some rights reserved. That's going to be a by 2.0 probably. Indeed, kind of hard to tell. It's down here in the corner, but that's what it is. We could do kind of a full webinar just on this stuff, but learning to do this, it's a bit of a hurdle the first time, but once you've got it, you've taught something that kids really need to know going forward, because it gets ignored so very, very often. I will step off my pulpit.
Yeah, and I will say that you do have to reinforce this with kids, like
again and again and again.
I've got juniors and seniors right now, and I have to remind them, because if they can take the shortcut, they will. If you don't make them cite it, they will choose not to cite it. So you gotta reinforce that. Now, to wrap up this question from Margaret, there are add-ons that you can use that will give you public domain images. There is an add-on for Unsplash images. There's a Pixabay add-on that you can install in Google Slides, and then you will have that information readily available along with the image that you choose to insert into the slide.
Indeed. All right. I think it is about time that we began to explore a little cool stuff. And on that note, why don't you tell us about this thing that you have brought forward?
So this is not exactly what it looks like on the screen. That's a screenshot of the end product. So what it is, it's called Brainstormer. You'll find it at brainstormer.online. It's kind of a funky link, brainstormer.online. It's a collaborative brainstorming tool, and there's a bajillion collaborative brainstorming tools on the web. I mean, you could use just Google Slides or Jamboard for that. But what I like about this tool is that it solves the problem of, okay, which idea do we act on now? Because at the end, everyone who's a member of the Brainstormer board can vote for their favorite idea that was put onto the board. And you can vote anonymously, which I like, because then it doesn't become a popularity contest of, oh, Sally always has the best ideas, so we must vote for Sally's idea, right? There's that kind of bias that comes up in classes sometimes. That's why I like this tool. It's really neat. Everyone, and you can set a time limit. It could be a 5-minute time limit. Okay, for 5 minutes, everybody put up whatever idea they have about how to improve water quality in our community. And at the end, we're going to vote for our favorite ideas, so we know what idea to act on. So check it out. Cool tool.
Yeah, and did you put this sample together for which you have the screenshot?
Yeah, that was me.
And do you regularly use, say, the English spelling of the word favorite?
Half the time I do, apparently.
I was gonna say, that's kind of fun. I mean, hey, you can imagine a discussion with kids about like spelling in different places and,
Apparently all my years in Canada, all my years of working in Canada have rubbed off on me.
well, let's wrap this one in aluminium foil. All right, and move on to the next question. So let's get another question in before I share some cool stuff, because I got some good ones.
All right, let's get another idea. Another question up here. So we've got the question from Judith. Speaking of Canada, is there a way to tell who put an item on a shared Google Calendar first? We're adding our final evaluations onto a shared calendar. Some teachers are trying to do the I did it first way of scheduling. I'm not sure what the I did it first way of scheduling, but you should be able to see who the owner is, but that doesn't necessarily have a timestamp on it.
Right. I think she's asking the question like, okay, so we've got this shared calendar, and you grab times, and so if I put at 3 o'clock that I'm going to be, I'm going to take that time, and then somebody with a name that has, like, let's just say a alphabetically comes before mine, right, such as Richard, right, puts one in at the same time, yours will actually appear on the left. And so, I think I've got that question right. And exactly, says Judith. I bow in your direction. Right. And my answer is I don't think you can. But I would say that maybe one fix is to create a certain kind of spreadsheet where that is where people grab times. And so on a shared calendar, it's all blocked off with a link in the calendar event to the spreadsheet that people would go to, and then they would put their things there, and then you'd have knowledge of what goes where via version history. So you'd be able to know that way.
Right. The other thing you can do is I have two other suggestions for this. Number one, not Google Calendar, Google Forms, and use the choice eliminator add-on to use blackout options as they get used up. The other thing I would mention is Jotform. Jotform has a built-in capability to schedule appointment slots or schedule times. And again, as they get used up, they disappear from the choices that are available to the viewers. So the first person to get there gets their first pick of time, and the last person is probably not going to get their first pick of time. So that's another one you might want to take a look at. In fact, I've got that. I do have a video about how to do, and I'll put that in the chat right now. There it is.
Perfect. We will get that added. So what happens, and by the way, Richard, you are to all panelists at the moment.
Oh, sorry.
If that's the worst thing that happens to us today, we're doing really good. So I'm not too worried on that front. But when we look at this, if you have not seen, if you've never actually followed the link to the links page from where we put the recordings of this webinar, you really should. I mean, like we get all this stuff down for you. That's in the Just Saying department. Mm-hmm. It's cool that we do that. And speaking of cool, right here we have the first of 2 shares from me. You're getting double cool share stuff for this. So they're both videos and stories, right? And this particular story is called "Please Touch the Art." And then what you're looking at as the art, that's in the screenshot here, is actually a set of screws that the artist has put in just so far so as to create kind of this 3D effect on it as well. And the guy on the left, who is the subject of the piece of art, is blind. And so there's this very cool story about how to involve others in your creative endeavors. Just it's a good one. It's one of those you're like, oh my God, that's really cool. That's really, really cool. And by thinking that's really cool, I was like, well, I got to share it with the cool stuff, because that's what we do on this webinar. So that's the first of the 2. The second, it's a marriage proposal. You're like, what? You gave us a YouTube marriage proposal? I did. It's a flash mob marriage proposal. You're like, I'm going to need you to explain to me what's going on with adding that here. So one of the things that we strive so hard to do as educators is to get our students to take things to a next level, right? Now, one of the things that I sometimes do with my students when I give them homework is I'll say, please add something cool that has not been asked for to this assignment, because they do. And it's often like by far the most interesting piece of the assignment. Students are kind of in this thing of, like, do what's asked, check off the box, right? And instead to have them in a space where they're like, that's really cool. How do you prompt that thinking? Well, there's a marriage proposal, and there's lots of, perfectly good ways to do it. Down on one knee, will you marry me? That's great, right? But you watch something like this and you're like, oh my God, that's really, really cool, because somebody went to some extra trouble. And so perhaps this is a good launch into a conversation about doing really, really cool things. So that is my pair of shares for this particular episode of Two EdTech Guys Take Questions and Share Cool Stuff. I'll bet we've got another question.
Yeah, we do. Let's jump into this question from Sarah, who asked, what would you recommend for recording voice and then inserting into Google Slides? We're now almost not allowed to use third-party apps and software with the exception of G Suite. Well, that is trouble, because while you can now natively insert audio into Google Slides, you still need a third-party tool to record your audio. The Slides itself doesn't have a native recorder yet.
Right.
Maybe it will in the future. So you're going to have to use a third-party app at some point in this process, unfortunately. And if you want to send your IT administrator to me to have an argument, I'd be happy to argue with him or her about it. But my recommendation right now would be something like SpeakPipe, which Rushton also recommended, or a tool that I mentioned a few episodes back called Just Mote. You'll find it at justmote.me. I'll put the link in the chat again. This will allow you to record audio. It's a Chrome extension that, if you have it installed, will allow you to record audio and have it directly inserted into your Google Slides. So you don't have to do a separate upload.
That's pretty cool.
The cool thing about it is that it automatically knows the permissions that you need to set for the audio, because one of the things that often happens, this came up last week, somebody asked me this question. She had made a slideshow, uploaded audio to it, had set it to loop, but then when she shared it with all the parents, they all emailed back and said, we can't hear the audio. And it was because she hadn't also shared the audio file. She didn't change the setting on the audio file as well. Just Mote handles all that for you.
Wish I had $1 for every time I had mixed up sharing things along those lines, for sure. I'd also add, by the way, once we've started to ignore the whole can't use third-party apps thing, Soundtrap. Soundtrap is amazing. It's an audio studio online. It's like GarageBand online. If you've never taken a look, soundtrap.com is a good one to take a look at. Let's try to get one more question in before we wind this one down.
All right, one last quick one here from Max, who wrote, with every new tech comes new ideas and new ways to incorporate it into your teaching, but you can't spend all your time trying to figure out what tech might work and forget what has worked in the past. Every new tech also brings new hope and how to figure out how to keep track of all this and not feel overwhelmed is his question. So what do you think, Rushton? How do you keep from not going down every rabbit hole and getting overwhelmed?
Two quick answers. All right. One, entirely self-serving, subscribe to our newsletters. We've done the hard work for you. All right. The second one is this. Don't worry about it at all. If someone comes across something wildly cool and tells you about it and you think not that's cool, but that's wildly cool, give it a little time. But otherwise, focus on using tech to see if you can get kids to do things at higher and higher levels of academic performance, right? Where they're beginning to like do those cool things, like we talked about with the homework. Add something cool to it. If you can get students to take their work to the next level, you could be using chalk and slate, and you're going to be giving them a better education than if you were using tech in a way that never really prompted them to take things to another level.
Yeah. And I would echo that and say that, I do this all the time. I'm always looking at new things, but the reality of how many actually make it into my classroom on a regular basis, there's a dozen or so that are that I'm using on a regular basis in my classroom, outside of Google Docs and Google Slides and whatnot, it's a dozen things, and sometimes I found one that was really cool last week and I immediately used it in my classroom because it solved a problem that my kids were having. I'm like, this is perfect. And then other times I'll look at it like, oh, that'd be cool for somebody else, but not for me.
Yeah. So I think bottom line, let other people do the heavy lifting for you. Why not? So we are going to take a break. Sometimes in life you need to take a break. It's well earned. That's our way of looking at it. If you disagree, that's your issue. We hope that over the course of the summer, you will do a whole lot of self-care, by the way, that you will get a lot of rest. You will get a lot of ideas out there. You'll go and you'll take walks, smell roses. I mean, that stuff's important. And especially after this year, right? So spend a little time doing that. We encourage you to do things like explore our newsletters. Whoa, he said it again. And I'm adding this time that if you're paying attention, you might win like a Starbucks card, because I do that every month. I give away one. Wow, that's so nice. But I'm giving away 2 this month. That's crazy. You must get dozens and dozens of entries. No, I don't. Your odds are good. Just saying. All right. So anyway, we hope you'll sign up for that newsletter. It's in the link stuff that we send out. Take a look at my blog or my books. I'm happy to work with you on ideas for that stuff as well. All of the proceeds help my little nonprofit attempt to save the world. And then there's this cool thing. Talk to us, Richard.
That's my Practical EdTech handbook. There's 64 pages of my favorite EdTech tools, tips, and strategies. It's free. Just sign up for my newsletter and I'll email you a copy ASAP. I'm also hosting the Practical EdTech virtual summer camp this summer. I would love to have you come visit me in Maine, but that's not really a feasible thing still, maybe in 2022. So Practical EdTech virtual summer camp, check it out on my website, practicaledtech.com. Sign up, invite your friends, and or just, if you like watching my face talking over screens, you can go to my YouTube channel and see all kinds of tutorials on all kinds of things. Send me an email, richard@byrne.media, tweet at me. You can find me on the Instagram, or you can find me on Strava if you'd like as well.
Very, very cool. All of you, thank you so much for taking part in our webinar today. We hope that you are going to have an amazing summer. If you are south of the equator, we hope you're going to have an amazing winter. See, that's how inclusive we are. All right, so at any rate, as you see things, feel free to send us questions. We'll gather them. We'll find a way to share them. You just let us know. So have an amazing, amazing finish to your semester. We hope that that wherever you are reaching that point where kids are like, oh man, I get it now. And if that's just not happening at all, we love you anyway. It's all good. So with that, I am going to finish the recording, but we thank you again, and pay attention to our newsletters when we tell you when we come back, because we will, and we look forward to it.
Thanks, everyone.